Scott. Colby Plus has finally dropped their airtight and waterproof bags.
I love it, man. And look, this is the season for people are traveling. It's time to stuff some stuff in some bags and make sure they don't get waterlogged. I've done many missions where I'm jumping out of the tinny, swimming to shore with my watertight bag, getting through the rocks, pulling my photo gear out, shooting, putting it back in, swimming back to the boat. Watertight bags are where it's at, and Colby Plus is your one-stop source for that item.
I mean, it's incredible how good these things are. They're so watertight that you could actually use it as a flotation device. They're the German-made tie zip zipper makes that possible. So it's great for dry, keeping your gear dry, or if you just have a wetsuit or wet stuff that you want to put in the bag and then not let anything else around it get wet in the back of your car or whatever, the bags are great for that as well. So go to Colby Plus, COLBYPLUS.com. Of course, they have wetsuits that we talk about, accessories, traction, stuff like that. But go to
Oh my
Colby
God.
Plus and grab the new gear.
I just realized whenever my wife sees that Colby Plus watertight bag coming from a surf trip, man, that thing it's got some danky, stanky smells in it because I always forget to pull the stuff out. It's like a friggin' biology class in there.
So your wife hates the airtightness of the bag, but it saves everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so go check that stuff out. And then, of course, Real Water Sports is always with us, but they're just kicking off a Memorial Day sale. We have Memorial Day in the US coming up on Monday, and they're kicking off the sale early, up to 50% off summer essentials.
Yeah. Real water sports. It's basically kick off the summer season and get a killer deal
Yeah.
at Real Water Sports, all these summer essentials. And I'm talking, sunscreen, beach towels, all the gear.
And surfboards. Surfboards are included in that as well. So go check them out for anything that you need for upcoming trips or just your daily life. So realwatersports.com.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing.
Yeah, guy. David. Yeah, guy. Yeah, freaking guy. It's Spit. We talk all things surf here. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass with you. And good day to you, dearest David Lee Scales.
Great day to you, Scott Bass. May 22nd, opening day of the Chopu event.
Wow. Yeah, good call. We've got quite a bit of news. There's the Chopu event with Prime Swell and Kelly Slater and John Florence news and Survival League. Who do you got? And a game. We have a game called Who Said That? And of course, how surfers get paid.
I love it. You created a new game.
I did. Do you want to play it?
I do want to play it. I'm
Okay.
excited.
All right. Here it is. Your job, David, and all those listening, is to tell me who said this. Okay. Here we go. And I'm quoting. I feel it's the only way surfing is going to become a big money sport. Contact, both physically and mentally. A blow must be thrown. I mean, I can dance around a ring for a while, showing style, but what's the judge going to say? Oh, yeah, that guy's got a lot of style. He would have done well if there had been a fight. There must be contact in surfing. A guy can actually whip his opponent off of the wave, then come onto the beach and have a fight if they like. That's okay. We won't give any bonus points for it. But the most important thing is that they can beat each other up. One-on-one heats are going to be a hit. Who said that?
I love this game. Do I get a multiple choice?
Yeah, sure. You get multiple choice. Why not? Let's make it fun. Do you want me to do it again?
No. I got the quote locked in. I just need a couple of options because I don't even know what era this. I mean, this could be Mickey Dora, this could be Kobe Aberton, or this could be somebody lampooning the event that just happened in Ecuador. Or I'm sorry, El Salvador.
Right. Could be either any of those or somebody else.
Exactly. So do you want to give me a couple of multiple choices or do I just take a
I'm
shot in the
sorry.
dark?
I'm sorry. Multiple choice. Okay. You mean like eras? I'll give you the eras. How's that?
Okay.
Or I don't know. How, you want me to throw? I'm not ready to throw names at you.
Okay.
How about do you want me to tell you the era it's from?
Sure. Yeah. Give me an era.
Okay. It's between 1970 and 1980.
Okay. Interesting. Um, man.
It's somebody famous that he's not necessarily famous, but you would know who this person is. It's
Okay.
not
Is he a
some,
surfer?
oh yeah, he's a surfer.
Okay. I don't know if it was just
I'll even go further and say he's a surf promoter.
surf promoter, Randy Rarick.
Whoa. What's going on? I have
Bugs?
no idea. I have no idea how Siri got activated, but
Oh, I couldn't hear it.
okay.
Rabbit. I mean, I don't think it'd be Rabbit. I mean, surf promoter. I mean, Randy Rarick is my guess, I guess.
Peter Druin, the man credited
Oh,
with
yeah.
creating man-on-man competitive format surfing during an interview with Australian surf journalist Phil Jarrett. Phil said, "But surely you're not suggesting that surfing is a real contact sport." And Peter Druin said, "Phil, it can be. I feel it's the only way surfing is to become a big money sport." And then the rest of the quote that I gave you.
That makes perfect sense now that you say it. I've seen some of his PT Barnum style promotions over the years,
Yeah.
and I don't know how much of them he believed or actually, put his money into or anything like that. But it always made for a good headline, which I think was his main purpose through a lot of it.
Here's the thing too about Peter. Guy's was a damn good surfer. Like competitively, I want to say he was like second in the Australian titles. Like he was a formidable competitor and a guy who, like I say, he was somebody you didn't want to draw in a heat. And obviously a great surfer. And of note, though, he gets credited a lot with creating the man on man competitive format that we see these days in surfing. But I've spoken to Hunter Joslin and to Greg Lohr, both Florida East Coast guys, and they are adamant that the first man on man professional surfing contest was held in Florida or somewhere on the East Coast. It might have been Virginia Beach. But anyway, Peter Druin gets credited with the creation of that during the Stubbies Pro in 1979 down in Australia at Burleigh Heads.
Um, how did you come across this quote? Was this relevant to something recent?
Yeah, in fact, I thought you would have read this perhaps because it came from Matt Warshaw's weekly newsletter that he sends out
Yeah.
from the Encyclopedia of Surfing. And he was commenting on what you and I spoke about on last week's episode with the girls' heat that was so combative there at the ISA World Games. And he sort of went down one of those Matt Warshaw sort of, sidebars where he talked about 5 different things and somehow made them all connect. And this was one of those things.
Yeah, historical reference point for a time when somebody else was promoting what we just saw last week. Um, well, I'm sure listeners are probably wondering, as you mentioned Peter Druin's name, they're probably looking for an update on the Jamie Brisick documentary that has been in the works for probably a decade now. Brisick wrote a book called Becoming Westerly, which was about Peter Druin transitioning to Westerly Windina. And the book ends, I think, with Westerly going and getting a surgery in Thailand. The book's out there. You can go buy it. It's a great read. And then the documentary kind of covers a lot of that, but then picks up with the post-surgery life of Westerly Windina. And I don't have an update on the documentary. Like I said, people are probably wondering. I myself am wondering because it seems like it was all but finished about 5 years ago and then got shelved. I don't know if there was more in the story that was developing that then Jamie was going to go kind of do a new basically ending to the movie or not. But I haven't heard
Yeah.
an update from him in
I
probably
want
3 years.
to say, and I'm assuming I got this from when I interviewed Jamie about a year ago, but I want to say that Westerly Windina had second thoughts and maybe went back to being a male or was
Yeah.
attempting to or something. Like for some reason that sticks in my craw as a reason why this story moves on and continues to evolve here.
I believe that is true that Westerly is now living as Peter Druin again post
Oh,
cert. That's that's the last update that I heard was
Yeah.
he's now living as Peter Druin. Um, but I don't know if that would stop Jamie from, I mean, at some point you got to just, you know, finish the documentary. Like you can't, if the person is still alive, the story is going to still be developing. And so you have to kind of pick an endpoint and then maybe just put text on the screen with the most recent update after the edit is done. But we want to see that doc.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get going here, boys.
Yeah, Brissick, what's up, man?
By the way, speaking of movies, so I was scrolling around today preparing for the show, and I see that you and Chaz spoke about this new Nicolas Cage movie called The Surfer. Give me some insight. I scoured around. All I could find was kind of a cheesy trailer, but do you know anything more about the movie?
No.
Like the movie actually looks kind of like semi-interesting,
Yeah.
a
No, I
psychological thriller or something like that.
I have not spoken with Chaz about this. I think he wrote an article about the film just debuted at Cannes Film Festival this last week,
Yeah.
and it got a standing ovation at the end, like a really extended standing ovation. So it's apparently really, really good from a very critical audience's kind of perspective. But I don't know anything about it. I haven't seen a trailer. I
Oh,
don't
I
know
thought you
who's
guys
involved.
spoke about it. Okay. All right. You know
No,
what
I
I
don't.
know. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Which is nothing. But I do love Nick Cage.
Yeah. What's the greatest Nick Cage movie?
Raising Arizona,
Yes.
perhaps.
Yes. I think so.
Yeah, it's right up there for sure.
Con Air is pretty good. Con Air I enjoyed.
I like Leaving Las Vegas. Did you ever
Oh
see
yeah.
that?
Yeah. I've never seen that movie.
Sad but good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that bit of surf history. I think it's important to incorporate little surf history tidbits like that into the show. So, and I like the game as well. Next time I want multiple choice because
Okay. Okay.
that's just too, I don't
Yeah.
know, that's too
Yeah.
broad. I just
Yeah.
feel like a dummy.
It should have been called Which Trans Surfer Said This, or I can change the name of the game,
I would have had a lot better shot at answering that question. Um, where do we begin the show? Do you want to start with Chopu since it's opening day, or Queens of
Yeah.
Ascension? Where do we go?
I guess Chopu sort of seems like
Okay.
the lead story here.
Okay. Well, let's start with a forecast. The event is off. Day one is today, and the event is called off for today and tomorrow. Any ideas? Why? And then what does the forecast look like?
Well, the forecast looks really, really good, especially later in the period, like later next week, basically, like a week from today or next Tuesday or something like that.
28th to the 31st or so.
Yeah. So the forecast looks insane, like really good. So I mean, if you're asking me why they called it off, I'm sure they all looked at what we're looking at and went, well, it's 3 to 4 feet today. It's going to be 8 to 10 feet in 3 days or 4 days or whatever it is. So let's just wait and see. And so all, everything's pointing to a pretty great event, I would assume, especially as we gear up for the Olympic Games.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what's really exciting about this here at Chopes. The other thing, of course, is that they're running the women there. And that's almost, as I think about how this event is going to play out, that's actually a more interesting storyline to me, because they are going to get really good waves. And it's not going to be like a heroic swell, but like you said, 8 feet Chopu is legit. And we've got kind of enough experience now from a lot of the girls, certainly even at Chopes, but certainly at Pipeline for the last couple of years where we've seen girls just absolutely going for it. So I think this is going to be a real interesting event where you're going to see some incredible performances, not just people stepping up to the plate, but actually getting insane waves.
Yeah, I agree. The storyline this whole year seems to be focused on the women. And it was sort of touched on a little bit in the latest stab, how surfers get paid. Did you see that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Did we talk about that yet?
No.
Okay. So they sort of touched on that, but this idea that the women are almost funner to watch because there's this huge area that they can show improvement, I think it was the African guy, I forget his name. Who's that?
Damien
Yeah.
Farrenfort.
Yeah. Duma, right? They call him Duma. He was mentioning, and I think we all agree that there's just so much we're seeing the room for improvement. The men are all, we know the men are insane. Like, okay, we get it. They're all incredible, but we're watching the women get to that level. And so it's a lot of fun as a spectator.
Yeah, it really is. I'll speak more about the women and kind of who I expect to see the event, win the event and stuff. But a couple of things going into this event is that Felipe Toledo is actually on island and out in the lineup. He posted an Instagram clip yesterday getting a smallish to medium size wave, making a little free fall drop and making a tube.
Well, good for him. I'm glad he's taking this whole thing seriously. I mean, um, you know, okay, like, I'm glad he's there. I'm glad he's putting in the hard yard. I'll be more stoked when he wraps the gold medal around his neck, because he charged the finals at 6 to 8 feet against John, and the guy who I think is going to win it is who's the Mexican kid that I love, Allan Cleland Jr.
You think he's going to win the event?
Yes, he's
Oh
my
my
dark
gosh.
horse.
You're talking about the Olympics.
The Olympics, yes, the Olympics.
Bold call. I feel like I should ask for a wager, because that seems like an easy bet for me. So yeah, let's do something.
Yeah, you're gonna have to give me some. There's gonna have to be some odds here. You just can't like go even money here. Like,
Well,
I'll give you $10 if Allan Cleland Jr. wins. You'll give me $50 if Allan Cleland, if your guy wins, you get $10. If my guy wins, I get $50.
Okay, but I'd have to think about who I want to pick in that scenario. I was just going to bet against Al winning.
That's fine too. You can do that too.
All right, we'll work it
I'll
out.
give you $10 if he loses. You give me $150 if he wins.
Eesh.
Come on. You don't have any faith in him. What you're about to win $10. You're about to win $10.
We will work this. That's the point, is I don't need $10. The $10, why would I even make the bet? That's just a big risk for me. I don't want the $10. But we will think this through. But here's what I'm saying is Felipe being there is meaningful. I don't know if it's meaningful, but it's an important thing to note, because where has he been all season? You know what I mean? Like, he's taken the year off, and the big question mark about him surfing big waves is on everybody's mind. But the fact that he's there in advance of the Olympics for a swell, like,
yeah,
he didn't post any amazing clips or anything. I mean, to be honest, Carissa Moore posted a wave that was double the size. And so she's also taking the season off, but here as a wild card for this WSL event. And then, of course, going to be in the Olympics as well. So it's great to see people putting in the hard yards in advance of the event, is what I'm saying. And I was surprised to see Felipe get a wave out there.
I totally agree. I mean, it's way better than hearing, nope, Felipe's nowhere to be found during one of the best, 10-day runs of swell, this spring.
Which I was thinking last week.
Yeah. See, so this is good.
Yeah.
I'm kind of searching for this Instagram. I want to see this. I want to see this. I want to see his wave.
He gets a good wave, but it's an insider. Like, it's got a bunch of whitewash on it from a previous, set that rolled through. So he wasn't like, but whatever. I have no idea. I'm seeing one wave during an entire day. Maybe there's more.
Yeah.
The other thing of note going into this event is that Kelly Slater is surfing, of course, as a wild card in this event. This is his 20th event at Chopu. He's won 5 times. That's an incredible winning percentage. The other thing of note is that he's only won 1 heat in the last 5 events that he surfed in. So he's, got the most impressive track record ever at Chopu, but also a very kind of pathetic track record for the last 5 events that he's surfed in. So I don't know where you would put him on your rankings, or whether you'd put money on him or not, but interesting stats from the world's best.
Here's the thing about Kelly, and in fact, Gabe too, and we spoke about this. From a fantasy surfer perspective, Kelly Slater is like the lowest seed in the event. He's going to be going up against Griffin Colapinto. Like, there's something to be said that if he gets through the round 1 elimination heat against one of the top seeded surfers, he's going to have a ton of momentum. Like, that's probably going to be his hardest heat, is like beating Griffin or beating John or beating Jack Robinson in the first elimination round.
Yeah.
From there on in, he's like, I mean, I know it all gets harder and harder, but I mean, talk about a good feeling for Kelly, a feeling of, oh yeah, I've been here. I've won it 5 times. I just beat the number 2 or 3 or 1 guy in the world. And this is where, you get what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be fun to see what happens here in the round 1 elimination.
Let's not forget we're post cut. So
Oh yeah.
there's a lot fewer surfers in the draw as well. So every heat is going to be very, very tough. Um, I would not put Kelly. I mean, despite his track record historically, he is a gamble for me. He is a not sure bet just because everything has shifted in his life this year. And again, that last 5 events, he's only won 1 heat. That's crazy. So I wouldn't put money on him.
Another bet, another wager formulating. Well,
But
I don't blame you.
who would you pick for your fantasy or for your survival league? Who is your survival league
Okay,
pick?
so survival league's very interesting, as you said. I picked Baron Mamiya. That's who I chose. I chose
Okay.
Baron Mamiya. And it was one of those things where you look at everyone, you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like if you've already used John and Jack Robinson, which
Yeah.
I have, you're kind of like, everyone else is kind of like, yeah, I could see him, yeah, I could see him. I could see Matthew Miguel. I could see Yago. I could see Ethan Ewing. Yeah, Baron Mamiya. The only guy, I'll be honest with you, and I don't know, I don't mean to throw shade, but the one guy where I was kind of going, no, I'm not going to go there, was Seth Moniz, based on he had this big moment at Margaret River, and I feel like some of the air has been let out of the momentum bag, so to speak. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope Seth Moniz wins it, but that would be a guy where I was kind of, just from a survival league standpoint, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if Barron made, the semifinals, let's say, because he's got the chops, but his the mental game or the competitive prowess is something from him that is always a question mark for me. So I'm steering clear of him. I picked Yago Dora, and Yago I just felt has the most tools, not the most tools, but has more tools than most for whatever the conditions present. So if it is 4 foot, he can still thread a 4 foot barrel and pop a big alley oop on the end. If it's 10 feet, he can absolutely charge and thread a 10-foot barrel. And then I looked at his stats, and he's finished 5th the last 2 events out there, last 2 years. So I think 9th, 1 event prior to that, and then a 17th was his worst result out there. So I just feel like those are safe numbers. And unfortunately, he's sitting last. He's in 22nd right now. So he's not having the best season, and he is going to draw the best to the best. But, I had burned a couple of my best surfers for the event. And I want to keep a couple of guys like Griffin and Kanoa who are going to make heats no matter what. I want to keep them for the events like Brazil and El Salvador. They'll perform out there, where Yago would be more of a question mark for me there. I just feel, again, most tools for this particular venue.
So a couple of dark horses that I'd like you to comment on regarding Survival League, and really the event in general.
Okay.
Who do you take from a Survival League perspective? Cole Hausman or Crosby Colapinto?
Oof. Cole, I guess. That is a tough call, but I would go Cole out of those two.
They're both kind of like bigger, strong, right?
Yeah.
San Clemente kids.
Yeah. The rookie year thing is just such a
it is
unpredictable variable.
Yeah.
But the regular foot thing at this particular, I'm sorry, the goofy foot thing at this particular wave, I feel like is an advantage.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Okay. Well, I guess more will be revealed.
So who's your pick to win the event?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to pull up my fantasy surfer thing, but it's going to bog down the show a little bit, because I remember, I think I doubled up. Oh no, I doubled up Vahini Fierro in the women's. Like I took one of the wild cards and I doubled her up, doubled the points, which you can do. As far as winning the event for the male,
yeah,
I think it's Jack Robinson deal.
Interesting. Okay. I'm going Gabriel Medina for the win.
Yeah, look, I mean, that makes tons of sense. I don't.
Okay.
He's another guy he's going to have to face Jack or Griffin or John in
Yeah.
probably the round one elimination heat. So
Everything that I said about Yago is doubled with Gabriel Medina. You know what I mean? Like he is 2 times more adept at everything that I said and fortified as a steely competitor. So but I couldn't pick him for my team. So Gabriel Medina is my pick to win the event, but Yago Dora is my survival pick. On the women's side, for me, it's really hard to look past Molly Picklum and Katie Simmers this season. They just are in such scintillating form with momentum, with their surfing ability, and they're kind of going toe to toe. I know Joanne Defay is actually in second position and Molly's in third, but still, they're the two to look out for me in big waves, especially.
well, I love that. And those are pretty obvious ones. And I have Caitlyn Simmers as one of my picks here on my fantasy team. I mentioned Vahini Fierro. I'm doubling up on her, and she's in the lower tier, one of the lower seeds. Guess who else I doubled up on as I look here? Gabriel Medina.
Yeah.
In tier C. I made him my double. So I had at some point during my pick here, I was like, something's pulling me towards Gabe to kick some ass here. So
Well, for you and for the fantasy surfer thing, I don't play it, but it's because you can only select, low tier surfers for that tier C thing. And the fact that he's ranked low is like crazy. So you might as well take him.
exactly. That's what I took Gabe and I took Kelly. I got those two guys, and those guys are crazy tier C guys. I mean, they could easily beat John and Jack Robinson and really shake things up.
Yeah. So what's interesting too is to think about on the women's side, the old guard. Like, how does Carissa Moore fare out here? Caroline would be part of the new guard. How does Sally Fitz? How does Tyler Wright? It's like we haven't seen, I guess, just lately in the free surf sessions, Carissa's been charging. So maybe she is, elevating her game. But traditionally, we have not seen those girls put on spectacular performances at this wave. And we've started to see that from these young new guard girls. So I'm just curious if the old guard will level up, to what's
Well,
demanded of them at this point.
couple things. Sally Fitz isn't in the draw, but you're right about this. It kind of plays out the same way the men's does. If you look at the lower seeds, guess who's a low seed? Carissa Moore. She's a wild card.
Crazy. Yeah.
So she's going to be going up against who? Caitlyn Simmers or Molly Picklum. And, so it's going to be, that's good. It's exciting. I love the idea that we have these seeds down low that are actual full on threats. Like these are finals, Gabe Medina versus John Florence. That's a final. It's going to be round one, perhaps,
Yep. Fewer surfers on tour.
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
It's better.
Who would have thought?
Rocketmoney.com/surf. Just this week, my wife figured out she was paying a subscription for Showtime, but then also paying for Paramount Plus, which includes Showtime for free. That's precisely what Rocket Money was designed for. A modern tool that meticulously tracks the details that we easily get distracted from. It's a finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your monthly spending, and helps you lower your bills. It gives you freedom by helping you see your subscriptions in a simple dashboard and alerts you about hidden fees or increases. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things that you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/surf. Calm the clutter in your head, simplify the tedium of your financial life, and find freedom through rocketmoney.com/surf. Well, that kind of segues nicely, I think, into the latest Stabs How Surfers Get Paid episode, which was entitled Queens of Ascension. And this kind of covers, what are you smiling about?
I thought it was called Send the Chicks Out. That's what I have written down. Send the chicks out. Waves are shitty.
That's the theme that emerged throughout the episode. But it's an episode, it's 50 minutes long. This is like a full documentary on professional female surfing. And The missteps early on and kind of unequal pay for the first 90% of the women's professional surfing, and then transitioning into the actual title of the piece, the Queens of Ascension. It focuses on the girls who have kind of risen up in the last 5 to 8 years and become the real top earners in the sport. So what are your thoughts on the piece? What did you like? What did you dislike? Or did you like?
Well, I've never been let down by the Stab series, how surfers get paid. I have lately been feeling like they're too long.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, did I know that the girls got the short end of the stick for decades and that they sent them out in crappy conditions because the guys didn't want to surf in it or it was just shit house? Yes, I knew that. You knew that. Everyone knew that. And it's felt like they spent, I don't need 5 talking heads telling me the same thing. That's kind of rule
Right.
number 1. Just give me one, the best guy, the most authoritative voice saying that, right? So I feel like it was just a little bit long in that regard. So thanks to you, I often look at these things like, okay, what did I learn? What was new to me? Now, did I know that Dusty Payne said some things that got the girls pissed off? No, I didn't really know that Dusty's comments were some sort of low watermark in the timeline of women's competitive surfing. And frankly, I don't think they were. I think that was kind of drummed up and used as like sort of a keystone to drive the narrative for the rest of the piece. And I'm not so sure that, like, did you know that? Like, does
Yeah.
anyone remember that? Or am I could be old guy that doesn't watch videos. The last movie I saw was Five Summer Stories.
It's half that, but the other half is that was um that happened when Stab magazine was at the peak of them doing what they were doing, and they focused on it heavily. And so that's part of Stab magazine's history more than it is anybody else's.
Aha, this explains. I'm sort of new to Stab, I guess. I
Well,
am so old. I am
let
like the
me
worst demographic ever.
um what I did find was interesting though. I mean, yes, I did know those things that you're talking about that they belabored, but them kind of talking about the history of how events got paid for, let's say.
Yeah.
A sponsor, and a sponsor would come in and say, we're going to give you this amount of money. We're bringing in our own commentary team. And you know what? If we're putting the money in, the guys are our top athletes. We're going to focus the money on the guys and the girls are going to get the short end of the stick. Explaining those details helps you understand it. I knew those details, but what it made crystal clear to me more than that was how contest professional surfing has been mismanaged historically, full stop. And you and I, often me in the last 5 years, focus on the way it's currently being mismanaged. But it's worth noting it's always been mismanaged and it's always been a losing financial endeavor. And so, Sage Erickson talks about 2012 being the low water mark on the women's tour. They had 5 events. It was all at beach breaks. They went to Biarritz for 10 days and they didn't even run the event. And there were no sponsors for the events as well. So she's pointing at that, 12 years ago as being like, it was abysmal. And I'm thinking to myself, by the way, Scott's chugging his drinkag1.com/surf.
Yes. Thank you. Go ahead.
Little afternoon pick me up for the show. Thank you. My question when I heard her really lamenting that was, are things any better now? And the answer is they're a little bit better now. They're running in half the events are in good waves or whatever it is. There's more money involved. But the people who are running the organization at that time said what the same people say now. And the excuse of why were you running events for women at all? And their argument was that, we're giving them an opportunity, like they are making some money. They are having access to sponsorship and stuff that they wouldn't have otherwise. At least we're giving them a venue to come and be a world champion in and test against the other best surfers in the world. My argument back, and I think what the girls kind of came to at the end of this piece was that, no, you're actually wasting our time. Like us spending the best years of our lives traveling around the world to surf crap waves for crap pay is not progress. Like we could be doing better things with our time. And so now, and I think Coco Ho is the one who pointed it out. She goes, I definitely blame the tour. Like you look now and you see these girls like Aaron Brooks who they show up to an event and they're prepared for it because they just spent 8 months surfing the best waves around the world. So when they finally do get a wild card into an event, they're charging, because they have, whereas I spent the best years of my life traveling to go surf knee-high waves, waiting for 2 weeks and getting 3 days of knee-high waves. And it was flat otherwise and not getting paid properly for it. So I think that when I kind of comment about the WSL and, the way that they're running events now, and they're not, this isn't the best use of John's time, basically. Spending these years of his life on tour are not the best years of his time. We don't owe the WSL a thank you for at least giving us something. What we really need to look at is what could be done. Like, what would the best version of things be done? And that's how they should be doing them, not grateful that we're getting some mediocre version. Because the women kind of highlighted with 10 and 20 years now of retrospection to think it wasn't doing us a favor back then,
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because 2012 in that time frame, it seems like the worst of everything came together at once, like the surf industry was sort of fading away a little bit. There wasn't social media. If you were a young girl, a young pro, or you want to be pro in 2012, you couldn't go to Waco and do film edits and put it on Instagram. You did not have that option. Your only hope was to like get in there with Bill Ballard and hopefully get a part in a movie if you were lucky, if you so it's not so much that it's just that times have changed so quickly, so drastically, and the environment, the economy for these women surfers has changed. Now you get Sierra Kerr and Aaron Brooks at Waco, going surfing all over, getting great clips, getting called by Stab to be in Stab High or to be a part of Surf 100 or whatever. There's just so many more opportunities in 2020 to 2024 than there were in 2008 to 2012, which was just, sadly for those girls, for Sage, as she mentions, and for many others during that time period, that was their only option. It wasn't like they had another choice. Like that was it. And of course, the ASP was kind of like, it just, yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah.
I feel like for this piece, I know Brody Carr. I've had meals with him. I've spoken with him. I think Brody Carr would be a great interview, a long, in-depth piece with Brody, like, because he's got nothing to hide, nothing to lose, nothing to gain, nothing to prove, and he was there sort of at that peak moment or low point, you could call it, I think right before WSL came in and purchased the ASP.
Yeah. What does he do now?
I don't know. I really don't know.
So Aaron Brooks, her story about beating Shane Dorian, Mason Ho, and Nick Von Rupp at Padang, at the Rip Curl Cup at Padang, the event that they do there, and seeing the way that she was charging, like the video footage of her, just this micro machine weaving through the tube, was so radical. And it reminded me of how much more resilient and flexible kids are. You know what I mean? Like at a certain point, you grow up and you've either had enough beatings to where you become tentative or your muscles become calcified enough to where they're going to break. But when you're young, like my little kid, if he falls off the bike, it's no big deal. He cries about it, but he's right back up. And there's no chance of him breaking a bone, basically. And she was kind of I think she was 16 maybe when she won that event, 14 even. Or not won the event, but she made the final. She got 4th place and beat those guys. You see some of that childlike in her, where she just doesn't know not to go. And she's talented enough to be able to kind of navigate it. But there's this special moment where it's just everything's clicking and she's just, it was just incredible to watch, like to see kids. I think obviously she's had the parental support to put her around the world. She lived in Maui. She's traveled to the greatest waves on the planet for big swells and stuff. So she's been able to foster the talent, but then be put in that situation and not know what her limits are, and to have had a couple of women pave the way in front of her. So she had those kind of idols that she looked up to, was just spectacular to witness.
Yeah, it was fun to listen to her. I frankly was enamored with all of the women interviewees. Sometimes some of the guys I'm like,
Right.
I just think the women in general, I'm sort of generalizing here, but I think they're more honest. They have I don't know, they're more fun to listen to. They're more intelligent, quite frankly. I think the world would be a better place. And again, I'm generalizing, if women had a bigger part in what happens, it's, and I would like to hear, I would be stoked if Laura Eniver and Anastasia Ashley had a podcast together, like
Yeah.
Anastasia Ashley and we mentioned this the last time they did a little thing on the women for on Stab. She's like, I didn't know she was as intelligent as she is. I just
Yeah.
thought she was like, butt floss girl or whatever, but she seems like just a super intelligent woman. And so is Laura Eniver. Like, they should have their own podcast and just rip and just do fun stuff with it. That would be I don't even know if they like each other or know each other, but
No, I don't know
even if
either.
they do their own thing, but
Well, yeah, I agree. They're articulate and opinionated, and they're great at expressing themselves. The interestingly kind of Aaron Brooks, that remains a question mark for me because she's so young, where I can, she doesn't have media training, it doesn't seem. She's a child, essentially. And
yeah, she shouldn't have media training. Well,
well,
maybe she should.
let me the difference though is Caitlyn Simmers, I feel, clearly doesn't have media training, but she's very solidified in her worldview and her beliefs and her opinions. And she's also able to articulate them. And so she's always saying interesting things. And she's just got all the credibility in the world from her surfing. So it's just like, I'm fully sold on her and her personality. Aaron Brooks, when I say the question mark for me is her surfing talent is clearly there and the world is her oyster and she has unlimited potential, but it remains to be seen whether or not she will be able to navigate the world that is available to her. Because when I hear her talk, she's clearly still a child. You know what I mean? And in her post-heat interview at the Snapper event after she won, she's referencing her dad a lot and what her dad tells her to do and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's all great and it's charming, but it makes me, again, when you think about her being on the world tour and the challenges that you face, and again, the deluge of media that's going to come at you and all that kind of stuff, I'm curious to see how she navigates all of that stuff.
Yeah, more will be revealed regarding Aaron Brooks and
She's still a child,
yeah, yeah. I wonder, how old is she relative to Sierra Kerr? Are they the same age? No, Sierra Kerr's older.
I want to say Sierra's a year or two older, but I speak off the cuff lots of times, and then I get notification. People tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah, you and me both.
I'll see if I can look it up real quick. 16 years old right now.
I'm trying to find
16 years old in January of this year, anyways. So, it was cool though to hear her talk about how Nike's Leave a Message was so important for her in her life, because you do hear about underrepresented groups talking about how much that matters just to have representation in a given thing. And I've never dealt with that. My group for the things that I do is pretty well represented, middle class white guy. But to hear her kind of talk about how that film was just on repeat in her house. I mean, I remember when that film came, along, and
which film was that?
I thought Nike's Leave a Message by Jason Kenworthy.
Oh, okay. That's what I was just looking for. It's funny you say that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so she was just talking about how that was on repeat for her, and having that as a benchmark to relate to and to look at and to aspire to was important,
Yeah.
And you see what she's done because of it. I think that's
one of the things
really
on my, what did I learn from this episode was that Kenworthy's movie, and I remember when it came out, but I just kind of didn't, but that's basically the momentum. Taylor steals the momentum for those 90s generation surfers. Leave a Message does that same thing for these young women. They look at it and they go, this is groundbreaking. This isn't just chicks and floss. This is chicks doing airs, getting barreled, charging, just all of it. And that's what Aaron and Sierra and those, and probably Caitlyn too, and all the other girls in that generation are looking to and just being, psyched on. It's motivating.
Totally. The other thing that I appreciated about this was just hearing directly from Jessie Miley Dyer.
Totally agree.
Without the lens of,
she went way up in my book.
Yeah, without the lens.
How I feel about her.
her speaking without the filter of a press release, basically, and
Yeah.
I know she's still speaking on behalf of the WSL and
Yeah.
all of that, but it was a very different, it was just different words coming out of her mouth.
Yeah. Totally agree. Well, oftentimes I just get so surprised because I think a lot, what it does is it speaks to how much we don't really know these people.
Yeah.
And when they let down their guard and they're like, oh, by the way, this is who I am. You're like, oh, you know what? This person's very likable, intelligent, smart, has a great sense of humor, a point of view that's valid. Like, and we don't see that. And now we see a little bit of it. And we're like, they should put that in front of the WSL. Are we going to run? Are we not going to run? Like, give us that Jesse Miley Dyer.
Well, that only kind of solidifies my conclusion that I've kind of come to a long time ago, which is the organization is the problem. You know what I mean? Like, if we're not identifying that in their spokesperson, that she is well spoken and articulate and thoughtful and looking out for the athlete's best interest, let's say, then they're blockading her in some way, that she's not able to communicate those things. If she has to do it through a different medium and a different platform, then I think that's a little bit suspect. The other thing is, from people that I've, who have worked within the organization, have said that she actually isn't able to implement a lot of what the surfers want her to implement. And so it seems like she's trying to do good within the organization, and they discuss pay at length in this, and so she did do good with that, but she's not necessarily able to implement what we clearly hear are some of her intentions and her motives of things that she wants to implement when she's talking on this platform.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree with you. Another interesting thing that came up, which I mean, it's just kind of like 6 and 1, half dozen another. How do you look at things? But if there's 17 women and 30 men and the pay is equal, I think Matt Biola said, well, then the women are getting paid double. You could definitely look at it like that. And Graham Stapleberg's like, yeah, you can look at it through that lens and say the women are getting paid double. There's only 7. They have way less heats to surf and they're getting more money because of it. But it's equal pay. I mean,
Rosie shot that down pretty quickly by saying,
yeah,
there's half the amount of opportunity for females
to get on, to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, to get there and earn anything at all,
She's another one that deserves her own little
She's great.
podcast, and she probably has one. Who knows?
Yeah. The other thing that we can call back to is, remember last year Stab Magazine posting a couple of puff pieces that felt like PR pieces for the WSL.
Yes.
And one was an interview with Jesse that was just such a softball interview, and we're like,
Yes.
what are you doing? And then because of the feedback flack that they got for that, Sam McIntosh got on there and wrote an article and was like, wait, we're protecting
this is how I get
our access
Yeah.
to interviews in the future. This is the interview they're obviously talking about, where they have Graham Stapleberg and Jesse being a little bit more candid than they would be otherwise.
Yeah.
So
Graham
whether or not,
by the way, if you turn the volume off and you just watch the whole piece and you're like, okay, tell me which one is the evil guy. You're like, it's probably that guy. He looks like they're like evil's emanating from his office there.
That's funny.
I like G. He's a good guy, but I'm just saying, like, he doesn't come off like super engaging and.
Yeah. Well, my question for you, coming out of this is, does this make you reconsider your own language or how you discuss things? Like,
yes.
Okay, short answer. The example I was gonna give is like Coco at the end, the girls are all talking about qualifying a wave by pretty good for a girl is they're like, that's an insult, and that's something that came out of my mouth probably even as recent as our last episode when we we're talking about maps of nowhere.
I probably said that today without even knowing it.
So does this episode make you reconsider your own language?
It does make me reconsider. It does make me realize I'm ignorant. It does make me realize that I've been Dusty Payne, quite frankly. I mean, I'm sure that you and I on this podcast, I know for a fact, I've been like, the girls are lame. I only want to see the guys, but that's changed, right? And the girls did that. I mean, they're exciting, and giving them the opportunity to surf at Pipe, at Backdoor, at Chopu in waves of consequence, helps to change the narrative. Do I can I stop the way that I view things and perceive things within my own little foggy neighborhood up here between my ears? I don't know.
That's a
Um,
great question.
I don't know. I don't, it's so ingrained in me. It's kind of like pronouns. It's like, dude, I can barely remember your name, let alone your pronoun. I don't know. You're still, doesn't mean I don't love you. I do love you. I love people. I'm empathetic. And so my point is that I don't know. I guess I'm old man guy. I'm get off my lawn guy, but I'm not sure. I'm, I do know this, that I will pray that I can evolve,
Yeah.
and luckily I have a daughter, which helps me with all this, because she's the first one to go, Dad, you're a misogynist pig, and
Well,
in a loving tone, in a
if
loving
you
tone.
if she's
You can
asking you
tell
to be
she's my
great,
daughter.
if she's asking you to be graceful and then she's calling you a pig, that's not very graceful of her.
Well, we're just
I
having
know, I
fun
know,
with
I
it.
know. So my take on it is this absolutely makes me want to adjust my language and be more considerate about certain things. But I wasn't aware that that was insulting. Like, I don't want to insult anybody. It just full stop. That's not my intention, is to insult anybody, with most things or almost everything that I say or any of my thoughts. But when I would say last week, as an example about Caitlyn Simmers, I was like, it's a flashpoint for surfing. And this was the best surfing I've ever seen from a 16-year-old, full stop. And I said, I remember in the past, we would qualify that by saying best surfing by a female surfer. I think it's okay to make distinctions. Um, I think like what Coco was talking about was there's no point in making the distinction at this point for Moana Jones Wong wave at Pipeline. You know what I mean? But I think that if there was a turning point where that distinction was made, it's important to acknowledge the turning point that distinction was made. You know what I mean? And I think what Coco's saying is we're past that turning point, and there's no point in the distinction anymore because that was just a heroic wave, no matter what. I'm saying in the past, when the distinction was made, it wasn't done out of malintent. It was specifically to note that there was a change happening.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, you can take a deeper dive here. A couple things. One is that during that piece, there's a still image they run of Moana Jones Wong at Pipe. And if you look at that image, I looked at that image and I go, you know what? That could be Tamayo Perry. That could be a friggin' Koa Rothman. Like, you really can't tell that it's a girl. There's no there's no bra. It looks like a dude, not a dude. See, look, there I go. It looks like a surfer in a sick, most beautiful pipeline wave ever. You can't even tell,
Yeah.
and there's that, right? And so then the other thing is, you know, to qualify it by saying, oh, pretty good for a girl, is on some deeper level to acknowledge inwardly that there's a difference between men and women.
Yeah.
And guess what? There is. And they talk about it in this piece that maybe we're
But
bigger, maybe we're stronger, maybe we're, you know, go ahead.
but pretty good for a girl is implying that the girls are
Never going
now
to be.
leveling. They're now leveling up. Like they were always inferior. So pretty good for a girl indicates they were inferior, and now this particular girl has leveled to the place of, male, whatever.
It is extremely patriarchal, right? It's
But
just, it is. But guess what? Society's been patriarchal for, eons.
well, so the other detail is I think it is okay to acknowledge that there is a difference. Like just stating that a girl is riding that wave is not misogynistic or pejorative in any way. But to say pretty good for a girl is then pejorative because that's implying an inferiority.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing that I thought was like Matt Biolis came across as a little misogynist just by stating the pay thing that you mentioned and by not knowing Molly Picklum's name. He stumbles. He then compliments her in the surfing that she did at Pipeline this year, but he's like, what's her name? Picklum. And then they cut to Katie Simmers and Katie goes, it's just her last name first. It's Picklum Molly, like basically correcting Matt Biolis. And I thought, so Biolis is getting flack in the comments section. However, he would botch Kaiuli Voss' name as well. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like it's not a matter of her being a girl,
Yeah.
which is why he botched her name. It's a matter of she's not one of his team riders, and he's learning about a new person and he doesn't know their name. And so I think sometimes some of the just the kind of ignorance gets mislabeled as misogyny.
Thank you. This is where I come in. I'll take ignorance over misogyny any day of the week.
But you can be both too.
Oh my God.
So anyways, I think the piece was very effective in wanting me to kind of change, my own kind of worldviews.
Yeah, I love that. I think if the rest of it was complete crap, that in and of itself is worth the hard work that stabbed in on it. I really liked the piece. I think it was a little bit too long. That's just my opinion from an edit standpoint. I think they can get the information across a little bit more economically or effectively, but that's kind of nitpicking, isn't it?
Well, we got a listener line call yesterday that does a little bit deeper dive into this. Do you need a bathroom break before we go to listener line call?
No, sir.
Okay, perfect. Then let me share my screen with you. Thought after drinking that drinkag1.com/surf, you might need it, man.
Never know. Things could change in a minute.
Okay, well, we can always take a break if needed. But for now, let's go to Alejandro on the listener line.
Hi, this is Alejandro, long-time listener, multiple-time caller for it podcast. I was just hanging out with a friend the other day up in San Clemente. She's in her mid-20s and young professional surfer and very smart, intelligent, sensitive, really good surfer. Has to go down every day to the lowest thing, and she just opened up about all this stuff about like how she just that environment doesn't tend to create, I don't know, a lot of individuality. It's filled with a lot of gossip. You go out, you see all these people that you know all the time that you're barely focusing on your surfing. And then she gets into being a woman, a young woman, in professional surfing, and the amount of friends of hers that are world champions that, are acquaintances that have had eating disorders, and none of it's talked about. And a lot of it is comments about young women's bodies and just crazy stuff that, as a young teen or a young adult coming into the world, we know this. The surf world doesn't, tend to create normal social learning experiences and dynamics. So maybe some pod fodder, but something I think is important to talk about. It's like, how are we creating okay humans, like mentally healthy humans in this surf industry complex? Anyway, just thought. Cheers. Bye.
Any initial thoughts on that?
My initial thought, again, sort of a sweeping generalization, is no, we're not. We're not. The surf industrial complex, or however you would want to characterize it, I don't think it promotes reading. I don't think it promotes learning. I don't think it, by the way, I don't think it's supposed to do that. But what it's supposed to do, it kind of, the whole thing always points to this concept, David, that I preach about a little bit, which is that surfing's not a sport. And if you filter it down into, I've got to go to lowers every day and compete and be compared to my peers, and wear this and do this, and are you sponsored, blah blah blah, and it's on Instagram, blah blah. It's just, it's a one-way, a quick ride to unhappiness. And I have a problem with it. I don't, that's not what's, I hope to God, the landscape is littered with young guys that I know that competitive surfing that's what their surfing experience was. And guess what? They don't surf anymore. They're fat. Many of them are dead. And it's just, that's not what surfing is. Surfing isn't scoring points on waves. It can be part of the experience, but it's not all of it. And does the surf industrial complex, this media, does that stuff promote that? No. Who does promote that? Like Lauryn Hill, like there's some healthy voices out there that promote goodness, and and the bigger picture,
Right.
But I think Alejandro brings up a great point that, especially here in Southern California, probably other places as well, but for sure here, um,
Lowers being the epicenter of what he's
yeah,
talking
lowers is
about.
like, yeah, it's just, I don't want anything to do with it. It's, first of all, it's boring. It's very boring. You might as well be, it's kind of like, MTV summer house show or whatever. You know what I mean? But yeah. So my answer is, it is good pod fodder. Is it for you and I? First of all, I can't speak to, uh, you know, body shaming or, anorexia or bulimia or anything. I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy. There are way smarter people that can discuss that. But I don't think the competitive arena does a great job of creating sort of a well-rounded, dynamic citizen, that understands this a civics class, what it is that we do here in America, why democracy is so special.
The detail about Lauryn Hill, I mean, she represents to me all that is healthy about surfing. Like the surfing lifestyle could be the most healthy lifestyle, spending time in nature, the physicality, all that kind of stuff. But the competitive contest surfer training at lowers is the exact opposite of that. That represents the polar opposite and actually makes it's detestable to me.
It's gross.
And
it's gross.
it really is because it's sullying the beautiful thing that we are talking about over on the other end of the spectrum. And so to even be
I
associated,
don't know if it's sullies the other thing. The other thing can't be sullied. The other thing's too pure to be
well,
sullied.
look,
Now, in the eyes of somebody who doesn't know, they go, "Oh, that's what surfing is over here." Well, they're ill-informed and ignorant about it. But
exactly. Yeah, true. So I, everything that Alejandro is talking about, I totally understand, but that is such a microcosm of a certain thing within surfing, as you stated. And so if you are committing your life to that, it comes inherent with those risks are inherent within that lifestyle, and you're going to have to really mitigate against those and try to have healthy counterpoints that allow you to kind of disconnect from that world. And I don't envy the girl who has to do it, but I think it is important to kind of just like Molly Picklum and Caitlyn Simmers could not have done what they did at Pipe this year if women didn't get access and opportunities and conversations prior in films like Nike Leave a Message being made prior. They wouldn't be able to do what they did. The girl, we need to have an awareness and a collective conversation about the, machismo culture that exists in that type of an environment that makes certain people feel unsafe and unwelcome and whatever if they walk away from that environment with an eating disorder or it's triggered by that sort of a thing. I think that's an important conversation to have so that that environment isn't continued for 5 or 10 years from now, and I'm not saying like if that environment exists in nature for a reason because it's kind of a representation of a hunter gatherer thing. I'm not suggesting that we have artificial blockages on what would exist kind of in nature naturally, but I think there's a healthier way for nature to exist naturally to where everybody can participate in nature and it's a more flourishing environment. And so having a conversation for that to be able to happen and acknowledge that it at least is happening and then it's at least spawning these kind of people that come out of that environment with very unhealthy interpretations of what it is all worth noting.
yeah, well put, well stated. I agree. And thanks for the phone call. And if you have other, we'd love to hear from you. David's got the number. What is that number? You can leave a voicemail.
Let me look it up real quick. I don't even know it by heart.
Well, speaking of
seven seven
yeah,
six 760-237-0150 is the listener line. Just
say
call
that again. Say that one more time.
it's a US California number. So the country code is 01 plus 01. And then the number is 760-237-0150. It limits your call to 3 minutes. So keep it brief and state what show you're calling in for at the beginning.
David, I'm sure you got one of these in the mail.
No, I don't think so.
What?
Maybe it's in
I,
my PO box.
I got one of these in the mail. Guess who this is from?
Who?
This is from our friends Sam and Serena, and their beautiful children, um, Winslow and Lennox. It says, Scott, it was great getting to know you on the trip. You turned out to be the same person I know from the podcast who I really like. Keep up the great work. I look forward to our paths crossing again. Thank you so much for loaning me the vest and making the trip great for families. Best and best, Sam and Serena and their
Serena.
children. Say it again.
Serena.
Serena. Thank you. I struggled with that. I apologize. Serena. And what a cool little note they gave me. And guess what else I got?
What?
I got a bookmark.
No way. Is that a hand-drawn note too?
Hand drawn with a
Wow.
bookmark, a note. When you get handwritten notes, you feel special. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate that. And I feel like enjoyed the heck out of hanging out and meeting you guys. That was super fun. And by the way, listeners, this is from our trip to El Salvador that we had a listener trip.
Yes, Sam was I think the original listener within that family, and so he brought his wife and daughters, and they are all listeners of the show after Sam finding it. And I got a nice note from him. So maybe I do have one of those in my PO box that I haven't been to in a few days, but I did get a really nice email from them stating that he kind of explained their travel home. They live on one of the islands off of Seattle, and so it was a long travel. It was a mission for them to get home from El Salvador. And he explained that mission and then said it was all made right because they listened to our podcast at the end of that mission and we spoke about the trip and brought a smile to their faces. So
That's
great to
cool.
hear from them again.
Super fun times with
Yeah.
Sam and Serena. The Straits of Juan de Fuca.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I do have a hard out. We're taking photographs, family photographs this evening.
Good for you. For the holiday card?
I don't know what card it is. It's just my wife, she's like, we're getting family photos. My son's in town, so now's the time.
You got to catch the sunset too. Before you sign off, must-see moment presented by Trees Wax, petroleum-free surf wax. Mine is Cave Heart.
I watched Cave Heart too. Cave Heart was great. Mason Ho and Sydney or
Sheldon Paisan.
Yeah.
So they look, they've been at it for years with that YouTube channel, Mason Ho's YouTube channel, Ho and Pringle Productions, and they don't quit. They keep churning out hit after hit. And so Cave Heart is those two surfers going to Scotland, and it's such entertaining viewing. They're surfing these slabs that are like waist high, but right on the reef. So much so that the photographer is standing on the reef in shin high water, and like 5 feet away from the surfers. It's spectacular surfing, spectacular viewing. Reminds me of what we said last week with Maps to Nowhere, where, oh, there's great surf all over the place. If you're willing to kind of get out there and just go a little bit beyond the popular spots, it's right there waiting for you.
Yeah, those guys are fun. It's a fun watch. The waves, it's kind of reminded me of like some crazy slab on the west side over there near Makaha or something. It had that that kind of vibe to it, but
which they often film at as well.
Yeah. But of course, very cold. And in Scotland, it feels like they got skunked, but they turned it into one of the greatest flips ever.
And with the greatest name too.
Cave Heart. That was a good name. They did well. All right. Well, look, we've said a lot. A lot's been said. We've commented a lot. I'm sure there's moments of ignorance, specifically from me, but I'm doing my best, damn it. And until next time, David, adios and aloha.
Driftline.co, promo code SPIT for 15% off your drifties.
Look, it's all business and all pleasure, right? You get the great fashion look of a normal board short, but unbeknownst to the viewer, underneath it all is an incredible 0.5 millimeter lined piece of neoprene there that keeps everything warm and snuggy and keeps the chafing away which if you spend a lot of time in tropical climates with normal board shorts, eventually you get a rash on your leg, but not so with the Drifties. Driftline.co. Go there now. Check it out.
And no longer are board shorts relegated to just summer because of the neoprene. You can wear it through the spring months, maybe even into the fall. Keeps you warm, shave free, a little bit of padding. It's comfortable. So driftline.co, promo code SPIT for 15% off. All right. Thank you, sir.